Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for Volpara's quarterly results investor webcast for the first quarter of the FY21 financial year. Joining us on the line today is Dr. Ralph Highnam, Volpara CEO, and Craig Hadfield, CFO and Company Secretary. Before we hand over to Ralph, who will give a presentation this morning, please be advised that this webcast is being recorded. All attendees are in a listen-only mode, and there will be a Q&A after the presentation. If you wish to ask a question, you can type it at any time into the Q&A panel below, or you can press raise hand alternatively to speak with Ralph and Craig directly. Please note we will be holding on answering all questions until after the presentation has concluded. I would now like to hand over to Volpara CEO, Dr. Ralph Highnam.
Cool. Thank you, Sam, and hello, and thank you for taking the time this morning to hear about our solid Q1 FY21, which ended 30th of June 2020. Let me also welcome you to the new world of investor calls based on internet technology as opposed to conventional phone lines. We trust the audio quality is clearer than previous calls, and we look forward in later calls to using more extensive imagery and video also. Volpara is a medical technology company whose cancer screening software platform assists in the delivery of personalised patient care and whose business model is predominantly based on software as a service, or SaaS, and we're on a mission to save families from cancer. We have much to cover today, including the traditional 4C numbers, which again show strong cash receipts, even with coronavirus strongly re-emerging in the US and elsewhere. Sales growth to give annual recurring revenue, or ARR, of just over $19 million. Negligible churn, so we retain about 27% of the US market for screening. Some go-forward strategic thinking. I'm joined today by Craig Hadfield, our CFO, based here in Wellington, and we'll both be available, as Sam said, at the end for Q&A. Firstly then, let's review the 4C posted up earlier this morning onto the ASX platform. I'd like to say that during Q1, we had cash receipts from customers of just over $5 million, 112% up compared to Q1 last year. Despite coronavirus, this was our record quarter for cash receipts, and we believe that reflects the high quality of our recurring revenue. Once our software is in and into the processes, it is difficult to turn off. Having said that, we're still obviously watching our customer base carefully for any signs of coronavirus-related stress. During the quarter, we had operating net cash outflow of $3.7 million, ahead of internal expectations and well within our budgets. Note, in addition to customer receipts, we did also receive US $1.7 million as part of the US PPP loan scheme, a sum which we might or might not have to repay in due course. We'll know more during August. Cash on hand at the end of Q1 was just over 67 million New Zealand dollars. That includes a further $9 million coming as part of the share purchase plan from the earlier capital raise. The aim of that capital raise was to strengthen the balance book, but also to give us ammunition for potential M&A should the right opportunity arise. We'll return to that later in this call. Turning now to the SaaS, or recurring revenue metrics, let me remind you all that all new quotes for any of Volpara products are now SaaS, although there are still some historic capital deals coming over the line. During Q1, despite coronavirus locking down many parts of our biggest market, the US, we booked a significant jump in ARR of just over $1 million to reach just over $19 million now of recurring revenue. Q1 and Q2 are traditionally our slowest quarters for new deals, and that was true again with new deals adding $450,000 of new ARR. But ARR jumped due to a number of MRS customers moving off their first year of free support onto paying contracts, some lung deals being fully recognized, and the favorable movement of the US NZ exchange rate. I'm also happy to report that net churn of ARR remains low, although again, we'll be watching closely what happens with coronavirus throughout the rest of the year. We've had a number of big contracts renewed during Q1, which was extremely reassuring to see, some for a further 5 years. At the end of Q1, we have approximately 27% of US women that get screened under contract to at least one Volpara product. During the quarter, we gained some, but also lost some as old MRS users on capital and service and maintenance agreements decided not to renew at least for now. This is normal for the old MRS business. Some quarters have some leave, some come back, and it tends to balance out over the year. That install base is obviously vital to us over this period. With no trade shows, now is the time for us to focus on the pipeline we have and mining the install base for upselling opportunities. That opportunity is reflecting the ARPU that we reported at the end of Q1, now hitting US $1.09 per woman. But the new contract we signed in Q1 had ARPU ranging from $1.87 up to $4.40, depending on the size and structure. We continue to have some excellent deals in the pipeline for a much bigger range of products than we've ever sold before, thanks to the acquisition last year of MRS and now the packaging up of their products along with the Volpara products. In short, Q1 was solid despite coronavirus. Our sales pipeline remains strong despite coronavirus, albeit some deals are pushing depending upon the location of the site. However, we fully recognise that we need to continue to change strategy away from trade sales and site visits to digital sales, and we'll do a deeper dive on how we're doing that at the upcoming AGM on August the 19th. Obviously, as we move through these strategic changes and we see how coronavirus plays out, we continue to see and talk with many interesting opportunities for us as a company. Now, before we open up for questions, I'm just going to cover a couple of things we've discussed previously, and I know that many of you are keen to have updates on. In December 2019, shortly after the strong results that came out in Project Dense, which was the 10-year randomized controlled trial out of the Netherlands, we did sign up our first major public screening program. Go live for that program was delayed due to coronavirus, but we do still expect that to come out over the next few months. Now, the second point was, as far as we're aware, the FDA is still very much on track to publish its final wording on breast density notification in October 2020, just a few months away now. Interestingly, over the last few weeks, both Missouri and Pennsylvania have now passed laws requiring insurers to cover additional testing if a woman is determined to be high density and or high risk. We see that as a significant move as it removes most out-of-pocket payments around that extra imaging and brings extra revenue to the imaging centre. So more women with dense breasts should have cancers found earlier. We'll obviously update the market as we hear more around this, and we'll use the upcoming AGM on August the 19th to read some of these matters in much greater depth. Now, with that, over to you, Sam, for the Q&A.
Thank you, Ralph. So we've now come to a time of questions. Ralph, I might get you to go to the next slide. Now, we do note there are a lot of participants on the line this morning, so we're going to try and get through as many questions as we can. A reminder that if you do wish to ask a question, as you can see on screen, you can either enter it into the Q&A panel or press the raise hand button to speak directly with Ralph and Craig. So our first question comes from William McDermott. So I'll just get you to press unmute on your end. Please go ahead.
I think we're live, doing well so far. Hi, Ralph. Well done on the quarter. Can you just talk a little bit more about the churn, specifically what type of customers they are, maybe what product version they were using, and to what extent maybe that was in response to the transition to the SaaS model, and then I guess an extension to that, a few questions in that. Did some of those actually transition up to a SaaS platform?
Yep, good question. Well, I'll answer it, and then Craig can jump in if he's got anything to add. Yeah, most of those customers are very small customers with very little annual recurring revenue associated with them, but basically they were sold some of the old MRS products on a capital model, and they've got small service and maintenance contracts. Just as per last year, yeah, we found some quarters you get a lot of, or some of these customers don't renew, and then some, a whole pile of them renew all at once. But of course, because it's capital and SMA, they get to keep using the software compared to the SaaS model, where the software would terminate obviously as that contract ends. So yeah, so that's that. So again, we saw this a bit last year. We had one quarter where a fair few didn't renew, and then the next quarter, a lot more actually renewed and actually went back up again. So over the year, we kind of figure some go off, some come back, and over the year it tends to balance out In this case, some went off, but the new enterprise sales, Volpara enterprise sales actually balanced things out over the quarter.
When does this product stop becoming useful in that sense? Then, if they stop signing or stop paying the maintenance contracts, clearly they're not getting the updates for the platform itself, for the product itself. When does it stop becoming useful for them, which might act as the impetus for them to actually re-engage with you for a SaaS-based product?
Yep. So we are. I think we've talked before. There's MRS 6 where we really focus people on getting over to SaaS. But MRS 6 and to a certain extent MRS 7 as well, which are the old versions compared to MRS Aspen. They both run on very old Microsoft server technology. That Microsoft product itself is now out of support, so it becomes harder and harder for us to support those customers. Now, traditionally, if they come off SMAs, that they're still able to phone in and get an hourly rate. So we're trying to encourage people to move over to SaaS rather than abide by those hourly rates. But the fact is, it's going to get harder and harder for us to support that software because the underlying Microsoft technology itself is now not supported.
Okay, thanks. So, and just finally, can you just remind us of the materiality of that breast screening program that you expect to come on in a couple of months?
Yep, we've never actually given a number, Will, on that. I think in terms of one of our deals, it's probably on the upside in terms of size, but it's more the strategic importance of that deal. A lot of these screening programs talk with each other. They are all very reluctant to change, but once you get one, then you can get two, and they tend to follow and talk to each other. So we're very excited about getting live and getting going with that organization.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks. I'll hand it over. Cheers.
Thanks, Ralph and William. The next question is, staff costs is 5 million in Q1. Is this a stable figure now for the FY21 quarters, or do you expect further pickup with growth?
Yeah, I'll let Craig jump on and answer that one.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. Q1 is traditionally our more expensive quarter. We pay out performance bonuses, and as you all have seen in previous announcements, we do some restructuring in Q1 as a result of it's been 9 months since the acquisition of MRS, and there was we had seen overlap in roles, so there was some restructuring which that cost featured in Q1. From Q1 onwards, we should actually see a bit of a slowdown in that cost for the remaining quarters, while we play out the new strategic imperatives which Ralph alluded to earlier, and which we'll do a deeper dive on at the AGM. But I think the key message is that 5 million should be on the top end of the range for right now.
Thanks, Craig. The next question is, where are you at with your acquisition strategy of other practice management vendors in the US, as this was partly the basis for your raising this year?
Yep, that's a good question. Wasn't the aim of the raise earlier this year was to strengthen the balance book and to put us in a great position to take advantage of any opportunities that might come along. And obviously, in terms of opportunities, there's a range of companies out there that we look at, and we are continuing to look at. There's lots of active conversations going on, but we want to get some slight strategic shift we're doing now with digital sales settled in. And we want coronavirus to settle down just a bit more, or at least understand a little bit more about where it's going, just like some of these companies do. And as we've said all the way along, really, any opportunity we take advantage of has to be the right deal at the right price at the right time. So those conversations are still very active, and we will be coming back to that in due course. But it has to be the right deal at the right price.
Thanks, Ralph. So the next question is, given the developments with the FDA, could you see a step change in take up of Volpara density after October, and how are you preparing for that from a sales perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we are now just about to enter August. 1st of October, we've got a whole new software release coming out, which we're very, very excited about. We've been planning this for some time. That software release is based on an IoT infrastructure, and that IoT infrastructure means it is much more maintainable, much more monitorable, and much easier to upgrade automatically by Volpara engineers. So yeah, we're doing a lot of work to make the software deployment and upgrades much more scalable as part of that planning. We're also obviously looking at ways to better scale our resources in terms of sales, marketing, and dealing with contracts as that October FDA date draws nearer. But I should add on that as well. Obviously, the Missouri and Pennsylvania laws are also of great interest to us. Breast density measurement itself is not reimbursed, but it's always been one of our aims or one of our hopes that as insurers were asked to cover some of the additional imaging, such as ultrasound or MRI, that they would start to ask for objective measurement tools in between the radiologist and that reimbursement. So there's a whole set of interesting dynamics then around breast density, around breast cancer risk, that we are in an ideal position to actually take advantage of later this year.
Thanks, Ralph. Well, we've got a couple of questions here relating to the coronavirus pandemic. So the first one is, have you seen a reduction in US clinic screening due to the spread of the coronavirus?
Yep, so it's a great question. We're kind of in a unique position. One of our aims over the last couple of years has to be seen to be industry leaders, and because of Volpara Enterprise, which is our cloud-based quality control product, all the images fly up into the cloud. So all the images, if a site is screening, those images are flowing up into the cloud, and we can actually monitor and measure what's going on those sites. So earlier this year, in April, May, almost all screening in the US went down to 10-20% of levels, but I can happily confirm at the moment that almost all screening now is back up to pre-COVID levels. I was actually on a call earlier with our customer operations team. They monitor what they call image ingestion closely, and we're well back up now to normal screen levels. I think the world has realised, and there's been plenty of press around this, that coronavirus will eventually go away, but cancer will not. And if you delay screening too long, you're going to get more late-stage breast cancers, and you're going to get a huge amount more cost. More lives are going to be lost to breast cancer. So you can delay things a little bit, but then you've got to get back in the routine of screening to really hammer down those numbers. So I think that's where we are today.
Thanks, Ralph. And is there any potential application of Volpara's products for COVID, given the implications on people's lungs?
Yep, so we traditionally our lung reporting software, which we acquired as part of MRS last year, has been used for lung cancer screening, but it's been well known to us for some time that most lung cancer nodules are actually detected outside of lung cancer screening. So for example, someone will go in for a CT to look for pneumonia, and they'll have lung cancer detected. We call these kind of incidental lung cancer findings. We're doing a lot of work on the lung cancer product to get it much more suitable for finding, detecting, and automatically start to populate those incidental lung cancer findings when people are screening for pneumonia because of COVID. But we're also adding in a whole set of templates for people to actually use the software as well to report on COVID. So actually moving away from just being purely lung cancer to being more lung disease management. That software will be released later this year.
Thanks, Ralph. So the next question here is, when screening coverage of US women reaches close to 100%, where will additional growth come from?
Yep. So, I mean, at the moment, let's just run through some of the US statistics. There's about 40 million women a year get screened each year in the US. That itself is only about 65% or so of the total population that qualifies for screening. So it's the more we can make screening more comfortable, the more we can make it more safer, the more we can make it more effective. We actually believe we can help raise that number, and that'll be a win-win for the screening centres, for us, and for the women, because they'll have more cancers detected earlier. So that's kind of one angle, but the other angle obviously is at the moment we covered 27%. We have a huge amount more, so 27% using just one product. We have a huge amount of growth to go, just upselling that installed base, and we have some outstanding deals out there now, selling into that installed base, not just one product, but the whole product suite. So we have a whole set of growth to go there. We have a whole set of growth, obviously, to go beyond that 27% up to 100% of the US screening population as it is today. And then we've got a huge step beyond that to get more women in for screening. So there's a whole set of areas there to move into. But then even beyond that, again, we've talked about this a bit before, and there's been some great papers out over the last 6-9 months on how people can use our measurements in breast surgery, right the way through, obviously, to the lung cancer work, again, which we're learning more and more about. And we really do believe some of our technologies, such as the AI that we do for the quality control, could be pretty easily applied to lung. But we really are a company that wants to focus, and that focus is on that breast radiology market at the moment.
Thanks, Ralph. So just once again, if you do wish to ask a question, please enter it into the Zoom Q&A panel that you can find below, or press the raise hand button to speak directly with Ralph and Craig. So the next question here is, what are the likely outcomes if the FDA publishes a note on breast density?
Yep, the draft FDA announcement came out mid last year. So if that is reflective of what they're going to say, they're going to come out and say, as part of your accreditation as a breast imaging centre to do screening, we're going to require you to report breast density to all women. At least the draft notification last year said that will be reported in terms of the traditional way that they score breast density today, which is extremely dense down to extremely fatty. The FDA will mandate certain words to go into the letters, which they're working on. I mean, one of the aims of the FDA really is to take the state laws and to really help standardize it, so women across the US and just the general information flow and messaging is standardized across the US. So as it stands today, it will probably be a four-grade categorization and reporting. The FDA will say to all these sites that when they do their inspections each year, they will look to make sure that density score is being reported in the letters, and that they will make sure that the density scoring is being done properly as well. So they'll probably do some form of sampling of that. The FDA will also, and again, this is part of the unknown, they'll also give some sites some leeway. So they could announce in October and say 1st of January 2021, everyone has to do this, but they won't penalise them for 6 months, for example. Or they could say from 1st of January, everyone has to do this, and we will check this on inspections and we'll warn you. So there is some unknown around exactly what the final wording is and exactly what the timing is, but certainly Dense Breast Info and some of the other women's advocacy movements are still strongly suggesting that it's going to be October this year when the final wording and timing comes out.
Thanks, Ralph. The next question is, can you please restate the new laws in Missouri and Pennsylvania? And what will these new law changes mean for patients and or for local mammography providers?
Yep. So the state laws. So just stepping back, 2006, 2007, Nancy Capello in Connecticut had a breast X-ray, got a letter saying she was all clear, then had a shower and felt a lump in the breast. Nancy then went on a crusade. She went to a radiologist and said, look, why have I got advanced breast cancer? And the radiologist said, that's because, Nancy, you've got dense breasts. We couldn't see the cancer in your breast X-ray. And Nancy was aghast that the radiologist knew that information, but did not tell her. So she forced through these state laws across the US, where the state law basically says, every time you do a screening X-ray, you will tell the woman her breast density. Now, unfortunately, as those screening laws progressed, they become pretty non-standard. So, one would say you have to say to the woman breast density is a risk factor, and there might be other options for her. Through to another would say, you have breast density, high breast density, you should go and seek out ultrasound. So there's a real mix of wording, and again, the FDA is seeking to standardize that. But what those laws didn't do was they, for example, the ones which specified ultrasound for an additional screen, they did not say that the insurers had to cover ultrasound as well. The recent laws, state laws that have gone through Pennsylvania and Missouri have both stated that if you have dense breasts, the insurers then have to pay for you to have ultrasound or MRI done if you're at high risk. So that is obviously putting a new dynamic into the game, whereby instead of women being receiving a letter and saying you have dense breasts, if you pay $250, we can do an ultrasound on you and we might detect early stage breast cancer. Now those women will be told, you have dense breasts, the insurer is duty bound to cover you for ultrasound. Please come back in so we can just check that there's no breast cancer in all that dense breast tissue that you've got. So we expect to see increased in cancer detection because more women will now go on and have that potentially life-saving extra imaging done. That will also obviously put more cost onto the insurers. It'll put more revenue into the hand of the imaging centres, so that those imaging centres will be more positive around actually doing the extra imaging, which some women so kind of desperately need. The dynamic, so there's a whole dynamic there, of course, which is interesting. But one of the things we said as a company when we started was it's very hard in the US climate today to get reimbursement for anything new. So you have to work to what's out there at the moment. And one of our hopes all the way along has been the insurers would end up feeling a lot of pain because of all these women going on for ultrasound, because the radiologist does a visual assessment, gets it wrong or reads on the high side, and then does a lot of ultrasound. We actually see a dynamic playing out, which could lead to the insurers feeling a lot of pain in these areas and starting to require objective breast density measurements to guide which women go on for this extra imaging or risk assessment. So there's, we see these laws as being very positive, and as they roll, hopefully they'll continue to roll out across the US. It will lead to a lot more imaging. It will lead to a lot more cancers being detected early, and it could well lead to much more demand for objective breast density measurement and objective breast cancer risk scoring.
Thanks, Ralph. The next question is, how is access today for your sales force to new client opportunities in the US?
Yep, that's a good question. As I said in the talk, obviously a lot of trade shows have now disappeared, but we are ramping up, and we'll talk more about this at the AGM around digital marketing using digital lead generation technology. Obviously, we've had the benefit of a very experienced sales force with some excellent networks. So, new leads are coming from those networks. New leads are also coming from that install base as we seek to upsell. And we're using these new digital techniques as well to to generate new leads. So, for example, we've run a whole series of very successful webinars where lots of people have come on, and we've had a lot of interest afterwards from customers seeking to know more about our solutions to some of their clinical needs.
Thanks, Ralph. The next question is, are you seeing any adverse effects from COVID that will impact your results?
Well, certainly, as you know, we've talked around in Q1. I mean, you're getting some deals. You've got some outstanding deals out there, which have been delayed due to COVID. And for example, the screening site that is about to go live is also obviously that has been delayed due to COVID. So we're getting the sense that we are, and we talked around this on the earlier talks as well. You know, we've got a very resilient company. We're in a resilient business because you cannot delay breast cancer screening. Plus, we have a very resilient business model, and we have excellent recurring revenue, which is a great place to be. But yeah, there's a certain amount of uncertainty around those new sales. So I think we're pretty comfortable with the recurring revenue. And again, over the last quarter, we've had some outstanding deals renew. Not just on an annual basis, but some coming back for another 5 years, which is great to see in that Q1. But it's the uncertainty around those new sales and getting them across the line. Yeah, we are still very positive as a company. We've got a great strong pipeline, but yeah, coronavirus seems to be re-emerging. Although today and yesterday there seems to be some sense now that the cases are starting to go down again in the US. I think as people start to social distance. So yeah, you know, there's some unpredictability around that, which is why we're not giving forecasts, but the recurring revenue looks very strong and the pipeline is looking good.
Thanks, Ralph. The next question is, what are the growth strategies for Volpara in countries other than the US?
Yep, that's a great question. And again, outside the US, you know, the US for us has been the early adopters because although they have these federal laws come across, you do have a lot of individual ability to change what you do. Outside the US, it's much more population-based screening programs, and those population-based screening programs need these big randomized controlled trials, or they need other screening organizations to adopt, and then they'll follow. So obviously last year in December, we had the 10-year randomized controlled trial come out in the Netherlands, Project Dense, which has generated a huge amount of interest around the world. And that certainly, we believe, led to that first state then buying Volpara and going live. So we're doing a huge amount of work in Australia, New Zealand, and continuing big trials up in Europe. We've had now this UK trial, I think it's into the 3rd year. We're into about the 4th year of a big Norwegian trial. So it's a huge amount of movement, but they take a long time. And that's why we're so keen to get this one live. Yeah, the technology is all in place now at this big public center. They seem to be in a position to turn it on. So we're getting towards that point, and if that goes live, and we have no reason why it shouldn't be a big success, yeah, we fully expect some of these other programs to follow that. And then not just follow that for the kind of enterprise quality control program, but also for the density solution as well, and some of our other products we're bringing down the pipeline. So yeah, a huge amount of activity then, yeah, outside the US as well.
Thanks, Ralph. And there's another question on sales. What is the biggest hurdle or impediment to taking on Volpara products when your sales staff are speaking with breast imaging clinics? Is it a reluctance or disruption from removing existing infrastructure? Is it price?
Yep, that's a good question, and the way we've answered that, and I think it's still very much the answer now, is I think fair to say everyone sees Volpara Enterprise, for example, and they are completely enamored with it, but they all kind of want it, but then we go into the budget process for each site, and it comes down to having a strong enough champion in that budget process to argue why they should buy Enterprise, for example, over the other products. We are replacing, remember there, what we're replacing is manual processes. So if you go to some sites today in the US, you'll be amazed how many huge spreadsheets people have, and they're doing manual quality control. So Volpara Enterprise, for example, could come in, and instead of spending weeks, if not longer, preparing for an FDA audit, you can get ready within a couple of hours, basically, and we've got some great studies around that. What we have lacked, though, in the past is those case studies coming through, and instead of just talking around return on investment, actually having the hard evidence. We now have a huge, good number of very strong sites which are coming through, and we're publishing them more and more now, case studies showing not only how we're benefiting patients, but how we're actually very positively affecting their ROI. And most of the ROI improvement is just in terms of sheer cost savings being done. Even I think yesterday or the day before, there was a site in the US where they have 10 X-ray machines. Usually they spend 5 or 6 hours collecting cases on each X-ray machine, ready for their audit with the FDA, and now they're down to but basically minutes per machine instead of hours per machine. So again, massive cost savings. It's great to see the hard evidence coming through. We always knew it was there from the theoretical work we'd done, but it's great now to see all the hard evidence of that coming through.
Thanks, Ralph. So we're coming closer to our finish time. We've still got time for a few more questions. So if you do have a question, please enter it into the Zoom Q&A panel or press the raise hand button. The next question is, how does your lung screening technology differ from your competitors, such as 4D Medical?
Yep, the lung screening technology we have is all about patient tracking. So, and this is the same for the breast tracking work that we have as well. So a woman or a person walks in the door, qualifies for lung cancer screening. As soon as they turn up at a hospital, that they register with the Aspen lung product and say, Mr. Smith is here for lung cancer screening. Mr. Smith then enters various information into that screening system, such as age, how long they've smoked for, and so on. The CT is then done. Our system gets told the CT is done, or other form of imaging is done. And then radiologist reads those images and uses the Aspen Lung structured reporting system to say, this patient has lung nodules in 5 places. This is highly indicative of serious lung cancer. We need to do a biopsy on this patient immediately. So it's all really about tracking that all the way through, and then those pathology comes back from the biopsies, and again that goes into our lung tracking system. 4D is a company we're certainly aware of. They have software for fluoroscopy, and they appear to be again looking to, rather than lung CT, they're looking to use fluoroscopy to do better lung cancer diagnosis or lung disease management and so on. As that progresses, as we talked about earlier, we're looking to progress that lung cancer screening software where we have today into a lung disease management system. So I have no doubt if 4D is successful, which we sincerely hope it will be, given some of the technology they have. If it's successful, hopefully we'll be doing structured reporting, not only on CT, but on fluoroscopy in due course. So it's very much complementary technology.
Thanks, Ralph. So we've just got time for one more question, and that is, in future, is a stable revenue expected, and how much dividend is expected to be paid?
It's a good question. Obviously, at the moment we are continuing to see good growth in annual recurring revenue. We as a company are very much focused on being strong and independent and helping as many women avoid late-stage breast cancer as we possibly can. That then is obviously driving us towards growth, but obviously, as we've said earlier this year, we are, and Craig has alluded to earlier today as well, we are looking very actively at keeping costs under control and moving the company towards that cash flow break even. yeah, we're not forecasting when that's going to happen, especially not given some of the uncertainty around coronavirus at the moment. But obviously that is on our radar, and that is a direction that we're looking in. But equally, obviously, yeah, we want to keep very strong growth rates as well in parallel to that.
Thanks, Ralph. So we just had another question come in, which we'll be able to squeeze in, and that is: conscious COVID has impacted growth in Q1. Did it also constrain your ability to grow market share?
Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting topic for us. I was talking to Craig a bit about this earlier. Yeah, fact is for us, right, Q1, Q2 are usually our weakest quarters. And then Q3, Q4 are when things really pick up. That's towards year end. That's when all the budgets and stuff get sold. So that's usually when we pick up. So in some ways, we're fortunate that COVID is really hitting during our weakest quarters. But certainly, and even in Q1, right, we've seen ARR growth, and not that percentage growth, but we certainly are still forecasting internally that we're going to see good growth this year. And as we as we go forward and play out the year, that will obviously start to be reflected in the numbers. Again, we have a strong pipeline. We had a very strong pipeline going into the whole COVID situation. We have some excellent salespeople out there, and there's a whole pile of really sizable, interesting deals with much higher ARPU than we've seen before on the verge of closing. So yeah, we're actually looking positively ahead to the rest of the year.
Thanks, Ralph. And that comes to the end of our question time. If you did ask a question that wasn't answered, we have your details and we'll make sure we follow up with you. I'd now like to hand back to Dr. Ralph Highnam for closing remarks.
Cool. Thanks, Sam. Thanks again for your time today. As you can tell, we have a remarkably resilient business helping millions of women each year. And we have some milestones like the FDA coming out with breast density legislation on the horizon. Thank you for your continued interest in our mission to save families from cancer. And we look forward and indeed kind of urge you to come along to the AGM. We do tend to use the AGM to give people deeper dives on a range of subjects that we don't cover on these calls. And we fully expect to do so again at the AGM, which is coming up in a couple of weeks' time. It will be Zoom, so you should see the details go out on email and up onto the ASX as well. So yeah, with that, thank you.